Sofia, and welcome to this second part of our event today. I'm happy to see so interesting and important contributors to our discussion. What role should have on a global scale European Union, and I will be very glad to have a discussion with all of you. Not so much a monologue from each of us, but to have a lively discussion. As a federalist, we are much more visionaries and pro-European with the biggest step, and hopefully Conference of Europe will push and will stay not on paper, but we push the Union to a bigger ambition for the 21st century, with more courage to do the next steps in many issues. But I don't like to start now. Okay. This is only a welcome. Happy to be with you, and please, Eva, you can start with the moderator.
Okay, so thank you very much. And I also welcome all the participants. I'm very happy to be there. And well, best wishes from the heart of the mountains. In a sense, I'm happy to have those online meetings, because you get such a big variety of people present. And it gives some people that not easily can travel also the possibility to participate. And this is something that might be something new for some of us. And we should also keep it, just to give more people the chance to get closer to European federalist ideas. So my name is Eva Lichtenberger. I'm coming from the UF Austria. I'm the vice president there. And I've also been member of the European Parliament and of the Austrian Parliament, where I was in the Defense Committee. So it's, of course, for me, the whole topic of security and so on is always in my mind. We have very interesting speakers to our panel, but before we start, I do want to mention some important announcements. It means, please, who has not done it yet, please put your name under your photo, so that everybody can see with whom he or she is talking. Second point is, be clear that this session is registered. So notice when you speak, it is registered and it might be seen by a lot of people. Third thing is to, because it's the second day right now, please fill in the feedback forms. It's very important for us to improve our sessions and so on. So please fill in those forms, so that we always can get better in the run of the time. Well, I think that's all. Now I just to say a few words. I'm very happy that we choose this topic for this conference. Because the new strategic autonomy is a kind of new buzzword which attracts attention, but as it is happening often, we do not really know what's behind. So this is also a chance to fill it with content, and I hope that our speakers will also do that. Strategic autonomy is something that's in the air for some time, but during the crisis, it has become a special attention, because the crisis, the COVID crisis, the pandemic really forced us to have a look at our supply chains, our relations, and we have seen something that really was not very motivating. It was that we watched how fast it could happen that a lot of member states stepped back to a pure nationalistic approach, thinking that closing the borders would stop the pandemics. And we see how present those ideas still are. And if it comes to strategic autonomy, of course, this tendency to think in nationalist or national terminologies and ways of thinking is still very present. And I am very proud to announce to you the speakers, which will speak in the order of the program. First, we have Vladimir Shopov, a political analyst who's talking about the 4 challenges to a global Europe. We will have Andrei Kovachev, a member of the European Parliament and president of the UF Bulgaria. We will have Boris Sandov, a civil activist and president of the Bulgarian Green Party, and Professor Maria Trifonova, visiting fellow of ECFR and assistant professor at the university. So I think this is a very good panel, and I give the word without any talking anymore to Mr. Shopov, who should...
Sorry, Eva.
He's not yet here.
But, you know, at the very last moment, we have to make a change. Excuse me. And Mr. Shopov will not be able to participate for family reasons. So he will be replaced by Mr. Lubomir Kichukov from the Economics and International Relations Institute from Sofia, former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Eva, you're muted.
Yeah, but because I have a lot of...
I'm sorry, we have problem with the mic. So yes, we have a last minute change, and sorry for that. It was in the program, but it's going to be Mr. Kovachev and not Mr. Shopov as the first speaker today.
So Mr. Kovachev will start, or Mr. excuse me, help me a bit with the pronunciation.
Don't worry about it. Kichukov.
Okay. So who will start?
Whatever is in the plan.
Mr. Kovachev.
Okay,
for me it's fine. Thank you very much, Eva, Velko, for the organization. And indeed, this big challenge, the pandemic, show us that European Union can play big added value to all efforts of national states. And we should be not shy to suggest, propose, request much more deeper integration in all fields where our union can boost the economy, research and development, innovation. We saw that with the billions of support from our common budget, we managed to get the vaccines much faster than, so to say, in the normal situation where it takes years. Why we cannot do the same for the effective treatment of cancer, of social important disease prevention? We can do it. Why we cannot do more with the common efforts also in the field of energy, battery storage, hydrogen network, to make much faster the step in the new technologies of the future, digital, artificial intelligence, clothes. That's something which we would like to see as the so-called, I mean, or some people invent interesting or new, or maybe not so new definitions like strategic autonomy or nearshoring. What we understand from one side, strategic autonomy, we like to see near again some of to preserve and to create new jobs, the economic activities to be done near to us or within the European Union. But from other side, we say we would like to preserve an open economy. We, the same, a bit of double meaning is we talk about carbon border adjustment tax. At the same time, we say, but this need to be in line with the WTO regulations. So for Ursula, it's very difficult. Now she proposed this, but at the same time, how this can be explained that this is in line with the World Trade Organization rules, and how this will look. This is interesting, like an idea, but we see that the devil is in the detail. The idea is that we promote the low carbon economy worldwide, so we push also other parts of the world to invest in green technologies, and in order to sell their services and products in the European Union. So they need to pay this, if they don't invest in green, they need to pay this difference as a carbon border adjustment tax. I give you this example. So this is this big master work what we need to do. In one side, to preserve the open economy and the open trade. In other side, to be strategic autonomous, to keep and increase the working places here in the European Union, to make our economy competitive, to invest in research and development. What we suggest is also the 3% of GDP to be invested in innovation, which can or should lead to everything what I mentioned before, to much faster boost in these important fields, digital, health, energy, from what we expect with the common efforts or with the common budget can be done much faster. So this is, I mean, to continue also the trade negotiations with different parts of the world. So to keep our, so to say, high, or to import our high standards of goods and services, and also our values. So these trade negotiations are linked with the value. We saw now with the CAI was signed in December, but for the moment, I don't see in the European Parliament any possibility to ratify the CAI without changing of the attitude of China. First of all, the sanctions against individuals and companies from the European Union, and secondly, the ratification of the International Labour Organization rules on forced labor, on child labor. This is something what we cannot jeopardize because only of, so to say, economical advantages without any value-based politics what we would like to. Okay, we understand that in a trade agreement is maybe difficult to change a communist regime, but at least some steps, especially on forced labor and child labor, need to be followed. And the situation in Hong Kong, situation in or the threats on Taiwan. So that's something important on issue specifically on China. All other trade agreement which the Commission is negotiating and we are ratifying in the right direction if it's keep the balance between value and trade. I will go now to the foreign policy, defense, border protection, extremely important, the added value of Europe and our global role in, first of all, preserving the physical security of our citizens. So the border Frontex should be a full-fledged European institution or European organization which has direct implementing power. That means, if needed, needs to be deployed with the common efforts of all of the member states on our external borders. Secondly, the big issue of, in general speaking, of foreign policy. We are a big provider of development aid. We know very well of humanitarian aid. We support people who are in need, but European Union is a very marginalized when it's come to solving conflicts in Syria, Palestine, Israel, in Africa, wherever. Other important players, the United States, Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, Saudi, etc. So we need, not only on paper and on verbally, have a common European strong policy, and this is why in some areas we need to give up the unanimity and go to qualified majority for some areas of the foreign relations. This is something what we many times raised as an important issue, because we need a more effective European Union. This is what is our goal, and I think that the citizens also expect an effective European Union. Yes, we are democracies. We don't have such a structure, right, like Russia or United States, where although United States has a check and balance with the Senate and so on and so on, but and the court and the Congress, but the decisions in foreign relations they are taken in these other countries, in China, etc., much faster than here. So we as a federalists would like to see European government and not this strange name of High Representative, etc., etc. But this should be the foreign minister of the European Union and the ministers of the European Union. Now, without the UK, I think we can also give a bit more of identity of our union. And this is not a problem for, I mean, it is the discussion about Europe of nation and federal Europe, for me, is really very artificial and strange. What is the offering of the other side? To go in the 19th century and everybody to do and to discover the hot water alone and to defend alone. There's, for me, not sustainable concept, and we need to go into details. I don't think we should go much deeper, and maybe in the discussion we can have some other aspects which I forgot. Thank you very much again, and I'm looking for the discussion.
So thank you very much for your contribution. Next, I would give to Mr. Kyokov for the next statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to take part in this event. It's really very interesting one. So, how to achieve strategic autonomy and make Europe a global player? Well, from my point of view, there are two basic questions. The first one is, how long is the list of global players right now? And is there a place for the European Union on it? And the second one, what does an EU strategic autonomy mean in geopolitical terms? So, the global context, an ever-changing world, which in fact is a statement that bears no surprise, is what we are facing right now. But we are witnessing also an unprecedented dynamics, which exerts a very strong pressure on all international systems. After the disappearance of the bipolar world, for about 2 decades, we all lived under the illusion of a unipolar world. When I say we, I mean including the sole pole, the single pole, where all processes are managed by one center, all challenges are met by it, all responsibilities and respectively all rights are attributed to this center. But the world turned out to be much more complex, and nowadays we are facing a multipolar world, which means affirmation of new global centers and regional factors, which means economic and trade competition, political confrontation, struggle for new spheres of interest. And in the same time, pandemia, however, exemplified another well-pronounced and opposite tendency. A secondary bipolarization and reshuffling of the world alongside a new division line, following the competition for global leadership between the US and China. So, and this rivalry, by the way, has at least 2 important characteristics. It is a long-term one because it reflects objective processes and is going to shape global developments for at least several decades. And second, it's all-encompassing, not just in business, trade, and investment, as it used to be until recently, but also covering more and more all other spheres of international relations, politics, security, international organizations. And as a result, this will require realignment by all countries alongside the new division line: liberal democracy versus autocracy, rule of law versus dictatorship, or simply the good guys versus the bad guys. So, how long will be the list of global players? The answer will depend on which of the 2 global tendencies will prevail. In other words, whether the tendency towards multipolarism will succeed to counterbalance the new bipolarization trend. And will there be a place for the EU on the list of global players will depend on the answer of this question. The deeper the world slides towards confrontation and bipolar division, the more difficult it will be for the European Union to profile itself as an independent player. The second issue, what does strategic autonomy mean in practical terms in such a volatile global configuration? In one word, it means emancipation. Emancipation in a three-directional, in 3 directions. First, that's political emancipation from the United States, because it will be too naive to believe that Trump was a simple aberration, rather than a phenomenon reflecting deeper divergences. Secondly, economic and trade emancipation from China. And the pandemic has proven how vulnerable the EU could be to supply chains malfunctioning. And third, that's mineral resources, and that means mainly energy and gas, emancipation from Russia. Of course, here I believe that an essential clarification has to be made, however. Emancipation should not be understood merely as or simply as confrontation, but rather as a cooperation without dependencies. And a fundamental prerequisite for the achievement of such a role of global player for the European Union. That's the unity of the European Union itself, which might turn out to be, well, a goal more difficult to achieve, but which is absolutely essential. So what kind of role the European Union could have and global responsibility in the same time? There are, from my point of view, several important fields, and I just mentioned them. First, as a soft power, relying on political influence and dialogue. Next, as a guarantee of multilateralism, supporter of international institutions, and protector of international law. That is, of post-war world order. Next, standard promoter. Next, international mediator. And most important, the main factor for the preservation of peace, a notion that has, I'm afraid, de facto disappeared from international vocabulary recently. War is back in Europe, I'm afraid, not simply as a fact in former Yugoslavia in the post-Soviet space, but as a way of thinking, as a mindset, because it once again is considered as an admissible and legitimate way of tackling international conflicts. And that is the major and most dangerous setback after the World War II. So, from this point of view, the affirmation of the EU as a global player is not simply a matter of a choice. I believe it's a must. Thank you.
So thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear you mentioning also the necessity of developing a very strong concept of this strategic autonomy for the next policy steps on international level. Thank you very much. Next speaker would be Borislav Sandov. Please.
Thank you. And good morning to everyone. It's nice for me to be part of this conversation. It is the first time I'm part of it. And as a leader or co-president of the Bulgarian Greens, it is kind of a normal thing because Greens are always being EU federalistic. So it is good that we from Bulgaria could also join such network. Just few words in the beginning, kind of a positive things that parties are kind of out from so far from Bulgarian politics, at least in the parliament. The topic that we are discussing today, I think it is a very important. I'm more involved in the climate issue. So as also a president of the Green Party in Bulgaria, I will touch mostly such dimension. But talking about strategic autonomy of European Union, I will try to do it in a way that look very simple, but I think it could provocate things and thoughts in your mind. What is the most important for a human being to exist? It is the air that we are breathing. It is the water that we are drinking. It is the food that we are eating. So nowadays, people kind of start rethinking about these issues because for a long time it was a kind of something that is already there and nobody really care about. But if we think in a political way on that dimensions, it is a water security that we should provide for all European citizens, and the EU has such a role in the recent years on a global level when we are talking about water policy. But also we have this new legislation in EU about right to water, which also start as an European citizens initiative, which is a bottom-up approach, which is a good one, I guess. So water security is one of the things that are very important. Europe is still a continent of water, but due to the international trade policies, we are importing water, but we are also importing goods that needs a lot of water to be produced. So we are playing this role when we are talking about water policy, and we could do better, also for the European citizens, but also on a global level as a leader of as a global leader when we are talking about new policies on water management. When we are talking about food, and I'm also part of this food sovereignty network in Europe, food sovereignty, which is also very important. We are importing a lot of resources which are destroying the rainforest, for example. So when we talk about the soya or palm oil, etc., etc., and it is the most healthy food if it is produced locally, seasonally, organically. And this is something that is also providing better environment for the European citizens. And strategically, autonomy, especially in a time of a crisis and in a time of a climate adaptation on local level, if we can change our policies in order to protect our local production of food and short supply chains and better treatment of products and environment and soil, I think this is also a role of Europe that could be a good example for the rest of the world. And the third issue is about energy. It was already mentioned by the previous speakers, but I think energy independency and the new politics of energy independency on local level with a huge European network of batteries and smart grids and etc. It could cut the supplies from dictatorship regimes, which is important. It could play a role in global leaderships when we talk about energy, what they call it in Germany, Energiewende, sorry, transition, energy transition. That was the word I've been looking for. And I think European Union is still a global leader when it comes to climate change policies. And being so many times on these COP meetings on the global level, I can see that. But still, just in the recent years, European Union played this united role in these negotiations, which is a good sign. And I'm really optimistic that climate is one of the most important issues. And if European Union play this role as a global leader, it could also give other benefits for our citizens, because this leadership also provide better environment, better air quality, better independence when it comes to supplies from fossil fuels, etc. So these are the things that I think Europe could play a global leadership and also providing better future for its citizens. Thank you.
So thank you very much. It's very important to consider that this strategic autonomy has a lot of different aspects, but it all concerns how the position within the global network on trade of the European Union will be in the future. So I think it's very important to touch also upon that. So now I'm happy to announce Professor Maria Trifonova, and please take your time.
Dear organizers, first of all, thank you for the invitation to this very important discussion. Thank you, Mrs. Lichtenberger, for promoting me to professor, but I'm still an assistant professor at Sofia University. But today I will intervene in my role of visiting researcher with the European Council of Foreign Relations, drawing your attention on some insights of ECFR's recent pan-European research on the role of climate to shape the global strategic leadership position of the European Union. So I think I'm exactly in the right order after Mr. Sandov's observations and speech. As we all know, at the end of 2009, President von der Leyen presented the Europe's new growth strategy, an ambitious plan to decarbonize the EU economy by 2050. Led by the European climate policy and targets, we all need to contribute to a profound transformation of the European economy and society in the next decades. So the future competitiveness of European companies will depend on two things, according to my vision. So first, their ability to use or reuse available resources in most efficient way. And then second, on their technology competencies, as well as the rapid diffusion of new generation low carbon technologies. I would like to comment and raise your attention, so to raise some points for our discussion later on two questions. So first, the European countries have currently different approaches in addressing climate and socio-economic issues, and their perspectives are shaped by a range of different factors. So how should EU-level decisions be communicated and enacted so that the ambitious targets of the European Green Deal will be achieved without dividing member states and creating additional socio-economic gaps between them? And then the second question is how to manage the impact of the European Green Deal outside of the EU borders. The ECFR's network of researchers in 27 member states of the EU conducted a study in January and February this year, with the aim to identify drivers of each country's climate policy and to find out which aspects of the European Green Deal are dividing us and which uniting the national governments. The results of this research show that many of the EU countries, the exact number is 19, are currently concerned about the socioeconomic challenges, such as the prospect of rising unemployment, which could be caused by the closure of carbon-intensive industries. 15 countries are expressing worries about higher costs of energy and fuels. 10 about declining living standards, such as those caused by the reduction in the consumption of certain goods and electricity shortages. 1/3 of the countries foresees political instability, which could result from public discontent with the implementation of the deal. Opposition from the side of the industrial companies has been also reported in 11 countries. And this is understandable because large industrial players need to introduce new capital-intensive technologies. Most of them are still not market ready and not mature. And also to transform their existing business models. Carbon-intensive generation or carbon-intensive facilities must be closed down, and the regulatory signals are not clear everywhere. in Europe. A lot of EU companies are facing carbon leakage, and this is not always in direction China. In some of the cases, countries such as these are countries such as Serbia and Turkey. So all of these are leading to a lot of uncertainties and concerns about the future competitiveness of the European countries and companies. Fortunately, there is support from the business community for the European Green Deal in 17 countries. So these are seeing the economic opportunities. Most of these countries are, so to say, technology leaders. But there is also another risk arising, and this is the possible gap in the starting positions between technology leaders and member states which are lagging behind in the transition, which actually could get even larger in the future if a rapid technology transfer does not take place in the near future. The other two main domestic challenges are linked to the national government's willingness and capacity to implement the European Green Deal. In 11 countries, a lack of political will is seen as a main obstacle to the green transition. And besides the socioeconomic effects, the EU members seem to be divided over the details of the European Green Deal implementation, such as carbon border adjustment mechanism, the role of the nuclear power in the future Europe's energy mix, and also which will be the bridging the transition technologies. However, there is one aspect that clearly unites the EU countries, and namely this is the geopolitical risks in the European Green Deal. It's highly expected that the new policy package will change the nature of the EU relationships with countries in the neighborhood and also other global players. 25 member states feel that the European Green Deal was recognized in some way in their country's foreign policy strategy, but this doesn't automatically mean that these countries could really address this challenge. So there's still the concern that strategically important industries will be overtaken by global competitors. There's a list of recommendations which our report ends with. It is to be found on ECFR's website, but I would like to mention just a few. First, building national level partnerships on renewables, on low carbon technologies, on innovation in form of innovation hubs is very important. It's essential. Then making European cohesion stronger by focusing on people. So we need really people-centric policies. The energy transition or any kind of transition would not be possible without a wide consensus and participation of all types of stakeholders. So we really need to build a people-centered narrative of the European Green Deal to make it closer to all the citizens. And the last one is just about the geopolitical aspects. The EU should consider a constructive climate relationship with China. This is really strategically essential. But then another thing is also to focus on the immediate neighborhood and to improve the cooperation, including green tech innovation partnerships with other global partners. So this is from my side, and I'm looking forward to our discussion later.
Thank you very much. I just was wondering during your reports why nobody was mentioning also the new threats like cybersecurity, like defamation campaigns, and on the one hand, and on the other hand, things like the big transition which is brought upon by digitalization. and its effects on the labor market. So, so maybe, I do not know who, but who wants to take up on these topics too a bit before we start the discussion?
Eva, maybe I can say some words about disinformation, fake, digital service, digital market act, which are now in the parliament. And as you know, the European Parliament created a special committee which has to come till the end of this year with recommendations for legislation on disinformation and third parties' involvement in the democratic processes in our union, especially electoral processes in the member states. Here we talk about mostly Russia, China, and some Islamic organizations, where the union has to defend ourselves against this hybrid new way of war, against cyber war, against us, against the democracy as in general. That's the one. The main principle is everything what is offline, illegal and forbidden need to be also online, illegal and forbidden. We are talking about very close cooperation with the big platforms. We had in the last few months very regular meetings with Facebook, with Twitter, with YouTube. As very large platforms, they have a big responsibility, and this is not enough. What we saw, their code of conduct of the platforms is not enough. So we will recommend to come to a legislative regulation. It's very difficult because the line between freedom of expression, freedom of thought, and the fight against disinformation is very difficult to be found. Everybody has the right of expression, freedom of expression, if it's not illegal, if it's not hate speech, if it's not intolerant, if it's not promoting terrorism, etc. But nobody has right of his own facts. The facts are the facts of reality, and we don't have, or nobody has the right to create his own reality or a virtual reality which do not correspond with the reality what is happened. So the Parliament is our rapporteur is Sandra Kalniete, and we will come with strong legislative recommendations till the end of this year. But this is on the top of the Digital Service Act and Digital Market Act, which are now to be adopted, and which will have also, which will be the framework to the finalizing of the digital free digital market in the European Union. We need, and we increase 3 times the staffing and the funding of the eStratcom, which is observing the fake disinformations coming, especially from Russia, from this troll factory in St. Petersburg. And we need also a common answer with sanctions, with targeted sanctions to individuals and to entities in the Russian Federations who are involved with such hybrid attacks against us, with a clear aim to change the public opinion in the member states, very targeted, using the sensitivities of each member state on history, on religions, on etc., and trying to attack on these sensitivities and to change the public opinion in the direction of the Russian Federation's Kremlin reaction, Kremlin's aims. Similar is, but more related to economy, is China, with their involvement in many parts of the world, especially around us, Africa, but also Western Balkan, Serbia, where they try to have advantage of their economic investments by changing the political perceptions of part of the society. So this is an extremely important topic on how democratic societies can protect themselves against such kind of intervention by the umbrella of freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Mr. Kukukova, I just would have another question to you, because you were mentioning the old bipolarism and the new multipolarism. There's always a big white elephant in the room if we are talking about that. This is NATO. So how do you see, is there a possibility that there would be a change also in this pattern, which they are used to since 50 years and so on and so on? Thank you.
Well, thank you. If you allow me, I'll just say a couple of sentences about the previous question, because I really think it's important, those issues that you mentioned and that you rose. In fact, there are several game changers for the future, and climate change, digitalization, and artificial intellect are among them. Yes. And in fact, these are the fields where the European Union can really be a global player. Yes. First, by its example. Secondly, as a standard bearer. Mm-hmm. And also, it could direct global trends in this way, in terms of creating the legal environment for all those spheres, because almost all of them have no exact regulations, global regulations about them. So that means legal environment, that means agreed upon global rules for them, and also international institutional build-up in these spheres. As far as NATO is concerned, well, that's a question that has arisen several times during the last 30 years after the end of the Cold War. And there were different ideas, as you know, during that period. In the first decade, there was the idea of also that Russia could join NATO, that it could be invited to be a part of NATO, and that NATO will turn into a global security system. That, unfortunately, is not a part of today's discussion. So NATO is still an instrument of the Western world. Mm-hmm. And for its security, and it will continue to be such, I think, in the foreseeable future. What is important is that NATO is not just a military structure, it's also a political structure, and it cannot but reflect the geopolitical developments in the world that are currently taking place. And of course, it will have to adapt to these geopolitical changes that are taking place. We are witnessing right now the discussion within NATO 2030, about the future role of NATO in the global world. Because, well, we should also make a difference between international and global. The global world is something different than simply the international world, because there are new players there. It's not just national states. We have different players, non-state organizations. We have transnational cooperation. We have global NGOs. We have such factors as, for example, Islamic State and international terrorism that are not national in their essence. So now NATO will have, of course, to adapt, and it will be very difficult to see how it to find a way to accommodate within its role both the security issues defending our world, and also not to be part of the escalation of the global confrontation that is taking place right now, which is a very, very difficult task, I'm afraid.
So thank you very much. And the final question to Mr. Sandow. You were mentioning also energy security and kind of supply chain management, which has to improve. We are the pandemic taught us a very bad lecture on that. What do you think about this old concept of making peace by creating economic networks on the one hand, and on the other hand, the whole conflicts on supply chains and forced labor and different conditions in all areas of the world out of your point of view?
Thank you for the question. I was probably had to finish what my general idea was, because all I mentioned in the previous talk was about food sovereignty, energy independence, water security. But we have to think about these issues not just as a strategic autonomy. It is also measures that lead us to adaptation measures on climate issues, but also these are mitigation measures for climate change. So altogether, and they make peace, and they provide better conditions, environmental conditions for people, for European citizens, and also that they're making peace and they're providing more jobs, because all these issues are de facto they're leading to a green new jobs. And we know that Europe has a big potential for such new jobs. And when it comes together with the digitalization that you already mentioned, which all we knew that it will cut some of the jobs and it will lead us to more needs for people to finding a new job. I think if they come together, they could make these balances. And when it comes to economy, I think that this short supply chain, this issue of everyone could produce and sell energy and food to our neighbors, it will bring us to a better market conditions on local and regional level. It could cut some of these barriers between regions when it comes to national borders, and it will also provide more fuel for a local economy, which I think is a very good one as a perspective. Mm-hmm. But also, of course, we have these challenges on a global level, and it was mentioned that European Union is maybe a global leader when it comes to humanitarian aid for the third world, and et cetera, et cetera. I think that yes, we are part of NATO, and we can. It is a hard talk to organize our own army or defense services, but what we can do in order to reflect on the natural disasters that are more often happening due to the climate change, we can organize, and this is also a matter of European solidarity that we have. We can organize regional networks and regional hubs which could make a fast reaction on such a disasters, and it could help European citizens when it comes to such a disasters. And when it comes together with the digitalization, this could organize hubs, let's say regional hubs, that have a good view on the forecast, that could prevent some of the disasters, or at least the victims of such disasters, that could organize better and more efficient, organize the tools that the different European countries, different European states has as tools, as mechanics and you know, helicopters, etc., etc. And I think such things are very important, and it could be the first step of a European common defense, not from army threats, but from disasters, natural disasters threat. It could lead us to a better and more solidarity, common reflection.
Thank you very much. So now, to all of you, the floor is open. Now I'm waiting for your questions to the people that gave you some ideas what this strategic autonomy could be like. And I think there will be a lot of questions. So please raise your hand if you want to take the floor. You can use the mechanism of Zoom with this raising hand, or writing into the text that you word. Yes, Mario.
Yes, well, I suppose we should kick it off at some point, the discussion. Thank you, Dr. Lichtenberger. Now, what I would have to say probably goes well with what Mr. Kyuchukov had to say. And I do indeed agree that we probably have already transitioned into the bipolar model. This model, which I would ascribe to two centers of gravity, one being, I would say, the more traditionalist, the one centered around the, let's say, state of affairs constructed around the United States and this identity, and the other being, let's say, the revisionist one. And I would not say that it's chiefly just authoritarian regimes that fall into this China-Russia bloc, but a broader set of states that will continue to expand, in my opinion, in the future. And within this system that we have transitioned into, there is this balance of power. This balance, this dynamic that is constantly evolving and moving. In the economic, the defense spectrum, they vary. It would be interesting to see if there is indeed a transition to a multipolar order, an order where there is Europe as the third quintessential player, what this role in the power balance would be. And in the four spheres that Mr. Kyuchukov stated, I would further add that defense would be key. We have not come to such an era, such a moment in the evolution of our societies, of humanity as a whole, where the specter of armed confrontation in any regard does not exist. It still exists. And we only need to look a couple of 100 kilometers from our shared European borders to see it. And a common European defense identity, in my opinion, would be the fifth sphere that we have to put out in front of the world. And yes, the question of NATO here is very relevant. And in my opinion, NATO is still pivotal to our defense here in Europe. But let me just ask this question. If there is an organization where a state is holding the controlling set of shares, the control package within it, the voting power, can the other part of this company, this organization, pretend to say that they can have autonomy within the organization, within the shared goal of defense? I think it's an ambiguous question, but very relevant to the current state of a future European defense infrastructure. And Europe, as we can see, apart from cyber, apart from digital and so on, apart from our green initiatives, which I believe in the future are again going to be quintessential to existence, probably considering how very impactful the changes have become. Europe is a leader in defense. We have some of the best defense projects and products out there on the market. Yet we have failed apparently to materialize it within our own principles, our own goals. And to achieve strategic autonomy, to achieve it, we have to first have an essence of strategic stability within our neighborhood, in our own backyard. Let's look to it first, ensure that we have the proper environment to grow, to manifest in, and then we can talk about having this global outlook. Mm-hmm. And I would be very interested if Mr. Kychukov, Mr. Kovachev, Mr. if you can further add to perhaps these notions. Maybe they're wrong.
Okay, thank you very much. I think all three people now have to respond to this question as Mr. Marinov wanted. Let's start with Maria Trifonova.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I have some technical issue here.
Okay.
So I think that you can hear me, right?
Yes, everything okay.
So what I actually started to introduce you when talking about the relationship with China. So it is really very important to not only building a strategic partnership with China in relationship with technology development and ensuring, probably this is also something which will build on the previous question about the global or regional supply chains. But so we should ensure that the supply chains which we are using are really reflecting our main principles of sustainability, because otherwise we can't, for instance, make renewables legitimate or new technologies legitimate when there are concerns about sustainability or equality in terms of how components in China are produced. But another thing is that we also have to see on this relationship as a way to exactly show this strategic position of the European Union, because otherwise, if we are not able to exactly how should I say it? If we are not able to position ourselves in this partnership and to structure this cooperation, then we tend to have another risk, giving the floor to other countries like India or Brazil to also miss the chance to engage with climate action. So that's why this is very important. In one way, cooperation in terms of technology transfer, and ensuring that our sustainability principles are also implied when we are talking to generation capacities and facilities in China. And then second, taking this leadership and taking this example its strategic position in order to engage also other global players, not only China.
There's a question to you in the chat. Did you read it? It's on the relations to China also, but tackling on the problems with, let's say, human rights, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South China Sea, and so on, and the possible cooperation in climate policy. Will you just include that in a few sentences as an answer too, please?
Yes, my reply was actually related exactly to this question. So these were my 2 points. That first, the strategic so the narrative that European Union is taking the leadership position, showing the way, but not only in a way of building regulatory frameworks, because I believe regulatory frameworks are important, but they are really difficult to be transferred to another institutional context. I see it more as transferring the ambition, showing that European Union could first be very ambitious, but not only we are able to exactly achieve our targets, which are considered ambitious. So this example in an international context is very important. So this is the exact narrative. And then second, to develop such kind of supply chains which are reflecting our sustainability principles, which are not only in relation to China, but also the other countries, Asian countries.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, Mr. Kirkorov.
Well, thank you very much. There are very interesting questions. And in fact, yes, we're now combining two tendencies, opposite tendency, towards multilateralism and back to a kind of new bilateralism. And of course, there is a change in power, in balance of powers. China is on the rise, China is on the extension. And in fact, we are facing a very paradoxical trend. Communist China, a leader of the global capitalism, which is quite paradoxical, but that's what we are facing. That's, in fact, the change that are taking place. And here we'll have to think how, in this new changed environment, we form our political approaches. In fact, we are right now abandoning the Kissinger doctrine about the Washington-Moscow-Beijing triangle. In fact, his assertion is that the most powerful angle in this triangle is the one which is nearer to the other two, nearer than are between themselves. Now we are pushing, in fact, China and Russia towards each other. And while China offers a systemic, non-Western alternative to the world, offers geopolitical alternative, but this is not a systemic one. No. It's completely different. So we should have to think about how to differentiate our approaches. That's first. And second, about the main question is, how does this confrontation end? What's the end? How do we reach the end? Because I don't think that military victory, I believe it's unthinkable. Unilateral concessions from one side or the other are hardly to be expected. Preserving the status quo, this is no solution. So maybe I'm biased, but I have always...
We have problems to hear you. Can you a sentence, please? Because
diplomatic. I just remind. Well, I'm biased, but I will always insist on dialogue and diplomatic solutions. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Now it's okay.
I'll just like to remind that. Well, in fact, it was not the confrontation and the Cold War but the detente that led to disintegration of the Soviet Union.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kovachev.
Thank you very much. This is a big topic about the future of our defense in Europe, within the NATO, for sure, and few options or scenario of the future. Do we like indeed a European army, full-fledged army with a joint headquarter, the European part of the forces together with the NATO, or a separate headquarter? How this army will be, or how this European defense capabilities will be deployed outside of the European Union? We need the consent of the national parliaments from where the stuff is coming, but this should not prevent if, for example, the German Bundestag is saying no. This doesn't mean that all others cannot be deployed in Mali, for example, or wherever. We had the bad experience of these battle troops, which we had on duty for 6 months, but nobody liked to, so to say, I mean, generally we don't like to use them, but to have the readiness to have such capacity. This is also preventing other aggressive actors. If we know that we are capable, we don't like to use it, but we are capable. We are not only a paper tiger, but we have something behind us. Unfortunately, our civilization on this planet is still not there that we can say we don't need army, or we don't need to invest in defense. This is why from 2017 and now with the multinational financial framework, we have the European Defense Fund with 8 billion euro to increase the competitiveness of our defense industry. Our big disadvantage towards the United States is that our price per unit are much higher than the price per unit in the United States, because we have too many modifications. We have the Spanish, the France, Germany, and the United States. They have 1 or 2 models of Panzer, of armored vehicles, and so on. This is why this, so to say, to overcome the national industrial or to push them to cooperate within the European Union is until now was preventing also this joint pooling and sharing research projects, around 110 pooling and sharing resources projects in the European Defence Agency. Very disappointing, because very slow is going the process. And now in the new paper of the Conference of Future of Europe, there or in the drafts of the political parties, for example, my party in the EPP, we have three options. We have 3 options of how to go further. I'm very clear for the most advanced option to go for a joint headquarter on European army. That doesn't matter the name. I mean, we can have European defense capacity and so on. I don't know if you have time. We can talk for hours on this issue. This is I mean, this is something what we can talk and talk and talk and talk, but this is only talks. And sorry to say this. This is I talked for months and years about this topic.
Okay. Not to talk about all the difficulties we already have now to adjust a little bit, or to find some consensus in foreign policy as an umbrella overall. So, Mr. Sandov, please short, and because we have one other speaker there, and then we will end the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, but there was no direct question on or comment to me, so let's just go further.
Okay, fine. Mr. Popchev wanted to speak for 4 to 5 minutes. I ask him, please, to be shorter, 2 minutes, something like that, because we are running out of time and there's another one who wants to speak. Mr. Popchev, please. Switch on your mic, please.
Now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful, thank you. Then I'll try to keep it very short. Let me first say that the process of building strategic autonomy and the attributes of a global player is taking place under conditions of unprecedented competition between and among the member states in many respects, in Euro-Asia, and in the global scene. Under such conditions, the EU member states should think about higher discipline, more cohesion, unity of purpose, and this does not seem to be very much on the agenda. So your organization could suggest that this goes higher on the agenda of the EU member states. Then they say strategic autonomy is not defined, but we can define it within minutes. I do not now have the time to develop. I put it down. You have, of course, the first defense and security, including cyber defense, cyber security, and all those new aspects of security, if you like. Economic might and climate should be in the core of the further economic development and deeper integration of the EU. Then technology and technology adoption. You have a lot of other fields that are close to mind. On the multilateral scene, the EU, by the way you have phrased this topic as if the EU needs strategic autonomy first in order to attain a global player status. But these processes are interrelated. However, they can go in parallel. The EU has been a global player for the past 20 years. Ever since the euro was introduced, the EU started putting up attributes which qualify it as a So let me finish with one issue which perhaps is in the center of it. How much of emancipation? Mr. Kychukov phrased this as cooperation without dependencies. Fair enough. But we have one interrelationship, and this is the Euro-Atlantic relationship, without which we cannot actually attain strategic autonomy. Some member states have had a long standing relationship to the United States. They will keep it regardless of what the whole union wants. We would better use the potential of the United States, particularly under this administration, to build the strategic economy. Okay, I have to finish now that you push me to. Yes. And finally, the EU will always, the soft power of the EU will always prevail on the military power in the strategic autonomy complex and structure. So this should be taken into account. This should be the feature of the EU, both in Europe and globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I give the word to Anna, who raised her hand, there are 2 questions coming via the chat. This is what is the view in terms of qualified majority voting in EU foreign policy? Would it help to get it? And the second was from Wolfgang Wieland. Do we need to develop and strengthen our own space capacities? autonomic access to space, something like that. So Anna, please.
Thank you, Eva. This debate is fantastic. It's so dynamic and so many aspects on Europe's role as a global player that my question, as this debate has been so dynamic, does not really fit into the context, because we spoke at the end on defense, and I would really like to hear more on this further development of a common defense policy, and maybe we can have another seminar. We could organize something. Mr. Kovachev, we count on you on that. So cordially invited already. So to really focus on one of these aspects. So my question actually refers, or my intervention refers to the first round, the panelists, when I heard from Mr. Sandoff, for instance, all the climate issues, water supplies, etc. So my question was, and I think it's pretty clear that that we have to reflect on to put it other, the pandemic situation has shown, I think, to everyone that a single member state cannot meet the challenges of today alone. So we have to reflect which tasks and which policy fields have to be transferred and have to be dealt at European level, and which ones can be solved or tackled at local level. Yeah, so this is principle of subsidiarity. So then the combination sometimes, we are speaking about the challenge of climate as a global challenge. Couldn't we link it better to the model of social market economy, so that we convince also these people who have doubts about this climate and ecological components, so that we further develop the principle that is laid down in the treaties, the social market economy on this ecological dimension. So this was my question, and this then to export, or as a value of the European Union in this global environment. Thanks a lot.
So thank you very much. So time is running out, and I do not want to shorten our coffee break too much, but I would ask the panelists now for 3 sentences answering the questions and giving their most important point for the future development. We start the other way around. Mr. Sandoff starts.
Thank you. And I totally agree with what Anna just mentioned about this social market economy and the dimensions. So I think Europe has a good basis that could lead it to a global player, and an example that could be shared with some other nations and regions, especially when we are talking about some issues that could bring better prosperity, but also liberal democracy in these regions in order to prevent conflicts, etc. And also, all this lead us to mitigation of climate change, adaptation, and better solidarity within the Union.
Thank you. Ms. Trifonova, please.
Yeah, I would like to agree with Mr. Sandoff, and just to say that, yes, we are very ambitious, and this is an example for other countries, and this is something which make our strong position, but manage to reduce our carbon emissions to net zero by 2050, and in a socially just way, and exactly following our democratic principles, this could provide a platform for the EU to become a global leader, not only on climate norms, but also on green technology. So this is just something important. I would like to end my intervention for today.
Thank you. Mr. Kukurov?
Well, thank you. Answering the questions first, I'm rather skeptical about an imposed unity of the Union. I would rather prefer an accepted one. So from that point of view, having a majority vote, I don't believe is the right way to tackle the issue of being more efficient. But there are, of course, possible compromises like positive abstention or consensus -1 and so on. About the space capacities, yes, for sure, but there could not be a space player without being a global player, and vice versa, of course. And last, the European Union, in order to be a global player, it should be an independent player. A dependent global player, I don't think is a sustainable unity.
Okay, thank you very much. So before I give the word to the last speaker, I would ask everybody to switch on their cameras, because we want to make a screenshot again of our debate. This debate has to continue. That is for sure what we saw right now in the interventions, and I think we will organize something on that. And Mr. Velko, please excuse me very much. I only saw that you were also raising your hand. It will be the next time on you. So our last speaker is Mr. Kovachev. Please, what is your answer to the question?
I mean, in general, we need a union which is providing added value and physical and social protection of all our citizens, also by playing an important global role. We cannot say that we are only limited in development and humanitarian aid, and we are not active on, or we are very weak, extremely weak. We are very, very poor, very weak, and there should be very clear said that this set up now with this high representative, doesn't matter what the name of the high representative is extremely not satisfying, extremely bad. So we need a foreign minister of the European Union, which is much more, how to say, confidence that we speak on behalf of the whole union. And his words need to be much more important than the foreign minister of Germany, of France, of Netherlands, of Spain. And this is the big issue, which is an evolutionary issue, that to transfer more power or more image power representation to a supranational institution like the foreign minister of the European Union. So we are very hypocrites, but talking and not touching upon the most important power. How to make our union more global player when we have such a poor performance at the moment, such an extremely poor. Now Palestine, we give to the Palestinians the biggest support. Without our budget, there is no Palestine autonomy authorities. But we have nothing to say. We are very unwelcome there because we are absolute not important by solving anything worldwide. So I'm extremely in favor to be united and strong. Only like this we can be not marginalized. Thank you very much. And we need a debate, as you said, on all issues: defense, energy, social, health, foreign. Extremely dedicated on such issue because there's so many things to be said. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, all of you. It was really an interesting debate. It was very good that we started it, and we have to continue because this is, of course, one of the concepts for the future, this strategic autonomy thing, not only going to military thinking, but to a complex view of international relations, foreign policy, and so on, has to continue for sure. So thank you very much. It was very interesting, and I think all of us learned a lot of it. So now we will make a coffee break, a shorter one, but I must remember you just, Julia will prepare the breakout rooms for the continuation of the debate on the Conference of the Future of Europe. And so stay tuned and enjoy your coffee. Thank you very much for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Nein, ich brauche gar nicht in die Stadt fahren. Gut, gut gemacht, Eva.
Hello, everyone. So I was asked to start to give you 2 minutes, 2 minutes more, but I was going to just start slowly. I'm Alex. I will be facilitating this more private, but very efficient, hopefully, and productive debate. When I first ask you, this should be more when you are in a real, before Corona, teamwork, that you can just talk to the people. So it's nice if you just go ahead and turn on your camera so we can see each other. And later on, we will also able to speak to each other. So I just wanted to make a very, very brief presentation in order for all the different groups that we're gonna do now to have a frame of what we're gonna be doing together. So I have a proposal for you, and this is that let's going to try to take all the ideas that have been floating yesterday's discussions and today's discussions and make something which is of ours. And this is important because we're going to be doing policy recommendations now that UEF is going to be also in charge of transmitting to the decision makers, and to be able, they will be posting those in the platform of the conference on the future of Europe. So what we will be doing here today, this debate will have an impact in the process of dialogue and democratic exchange of ideas that it should be going on with the conference on the future of Europe. So normally in our workshop where we had a bit more of time and we were in presence, as a facilitator, I would be able to normally go through brainstorming processes or dynamics that allows you to exchange in other ways. But I thought actually having 1 hour to write recommendation policies or draft recommendations, it's actually also a very good exercise to train a bit time and team management skills and work a bit under pressure. So very briefly, in the next 5 minutes before we move to the break sessions, I want to explain what I'm going to be doing as a facilitator first. Second, what should you be doing, or what are you going to be doing in your break room sessions? And third, how are we going to do it? So first, I will be facilitating content support, but I don't want to tell you go for this, or I won't jump into the room sessions and tell you, oh, maybe you should discuss about that. So that's completely up to you. I will be there to support you if you have questions, if I can provide you legal basis if you don't know, or if maybe you are talking about a policy and you don't know if it is already in place, like within PESCO or complex issues. I will try to either know the answer and tell you, or even very quickly research it through your team, so you can go very accurately about what you're talking about. So, and secondly, I will be trying to moderate the timing, because in an hour, it's enough, but we need to be efficient if we want to come up with good, proper policy recommendations. So what are we going to be doing, or what are you going to be doing? I actually already answered this question, policy recommendations. So I wanted to, in second place, explain very briefly what the structure should be. So all the different teams have a same idea of what we'll be discussing and what is the product that we want to end up with. So policy recommendation is, think about this is something that policymakers are going to be reading, but they don't like to read. They don't like to read, and they want to know everything very quickly. And they want to have one center, which is good in making an impact, but it's also good in terms of accuracy, and they can tell it in a discussion, meeting, plenary, whatever. So for that, policy recommendations, they need to be first short, and they need to be readable. That means not too technical, yet professional. And most of all, they need to be accurate as possible, as accurate as possible in the facts. So these three things, bear them in mind: short, professional in the language and readable, but foremost accurate. And try to be very complex. It's very straight to the point. People that are actually reading those policy recommendations, we be grateful that they don't need to read too much or too complex things. So second point is the structure. What I propose you to do is to divide the short text that we are going to write together in a second, or in the different groups, in 2 parts. And actually, when we were before in the conversation, you could hear how, for example, in the last conversation, we were talking about how the European Union has this problem to exert a good image in the international arena, because we don't have the mechanisms to have one strong voice, that foreign minister or something like that. So that's a problem. And then you can come up with a solution. So the two parts of a policy recommendation, very quickly explained. First, we need an analysis, and then we do these policy recommendations. So what I propose you is to first debate among yourself, come up with a problem of something, and then write 2, 1, or 3 policy recommendations specific to that problem that you or in your group make you intrigued you during all these conversations yesterday or today. It can be specific to defense and security. It can be more towards global policy, foreign policy, or the democratic mechanisms, as we saw yesterday with the other speakers. In order to do this document, which we're going to do now with an analysis very short, 5 to 10 sentences, not even longer, and the policy recommendations, I propose you that you bear in mind 2 things. Choose a topic, and then you can decide to be more general or more specific. You can decide to talk about, because you've seen this during the pandemic, just to talk about crisis management with the pandemic. How can we do where is a problem in delegations, for example, providing services to our citizens abroad when we come to a crisis, and then policy recommendations to how can we enhance that and make that work better. Or you can go abroad and talk about policy decision making in the field of security and defense, or foreign and security, common security and foreign policy. Or go for sanctions and just speak about majorities, I would say. Do we have a problem in how we decide on sanctions with Belarus, for example? That would be a good example to take. And what are the policy recommendations that we can take? So that would be the first step. And the second step is to know what you are proposing in your policy recommendations. So you can mix what I'm going to say now. You can choose one, but also like kind of the frame. You can choose, for example, to do a policy recommendation. I think Anna actually, the Secretary General of UEF, make a very good point and said how important is social Europe, or the construct of social Europe within the whole dynamics, to also enhance community and explain for the people that the European Union works, and also through that process make a stronger Europe overall. So you could decide to go for policy production, or policy recommendations on a certain policy issue. You could also try to foster or propose institutional change within the treaties. And I want to make an example that just came to my mind when I was hearing the last speaker, and he was talking about one strong voice. Some years ago, it was proposed just within the institutions and talk. It didn't really make it anywhere, but it was proposed to unite the figure of the European Commission and the figure of the European Council President. The idea was not to change the treaties, but to agree in a new tradition that the person proposed by the European Council and then elected by the European Commission should be afterwards bindingly elected also President of the European Commission. So the 2 offices would be embodied in one same person that could be in the international states be seen as a President of the European Union short of within changing the treaties, just with a kind of compromise within the institutions and the decision makers. So that's one example. Another example also mentioned in the discussion would be the mechanism of enhanced cooperation. So leaving those countries that want to further integrate also institutionally to do so. So summing up what we're going to be doing now, we want to write in each group 1 policy recommendation. You will be doing that in a small group. I will explain that in a second. And the idea of that is to come up with a very short document with 2 parts. First, an analysis of a topic that intrigued you and you find interesting, what's not working there. And second part, bullet points, very good, very clear policy recommendations. We propose this for this topic. We propose this for this topic. And third point, in order to do this, and this should be done. Not more, not less. Keep it simple. And when we post this, there will be policy recommendations that people will be able to read very easily and very quickly, and then we'll be more likely to have an impact in the whole conversation that is going on in the platform, the conference, and the future of Europe. So my last point, I said, how are we going to do that? So the team of the secretary organized these break-in sessions, room breaking sessions that you will be now allocated in. They are named after different mothers and fathers of the European Union. So we have, if I'm correct, Robert Schuman room, Simone Weil room, Hannah Arendt room, and a Altiero Spinelli room. And in parallel, you have links, or you should get from the Secretariat also links to 4 different Google Docs named after this very same father and mother of the European Union. So my proposal to you is enjoy being in a small team, manage yourself your time, see yourself, discuss yourself, enjoy politics, enjoy the European Union, enjoy the process that the Conference on the Future of Europe allows, and try to follow that process. I don't want to tell you how to manage your time, but I would propose you that you allocate 20 minutes to choose a topic and see the analysis of that problematic, and 20 minutes to come up with 3 valid points, and also just draft everything at the end. And just choose one of you. So maybe the idea is after this 20 and 20 minutes or 40 minutes in total, we still have 10 minutes to come back and try to debrief a bit and maybe hear some of the proposals that you've written. For that, maybe you want to choose someone that maybe explains or represents your team later in the conversation. So if you have any questions that I can answer, or anything was not clear.
Alejandro, yes, just one thing, if I may. I will start now the rooms. So everyone has been allocated in different rooms. And of course, you can contact the Secretariat, Alejandra, Cecilia, and Julia. And we'll see how we deal with the breakout rooms. Otherwise, if we see that there are a few people only in a room, we will allocate them in another room, okay? But for now, this is what we are going to do. Is that okay for everyone? Alejandro, yes?
Yeah, we can also see if there is only a few, we can end up in 2 rooms or whatever.
Yeah, I start the rooms now and we'll see now, okay?
Very good.
Okay, Okay, so we have just 1 participant in Robert Schuman. For Simone Weil, we are good as we have 4 participants. We have 4 participants in Altiero Spinelli, so that's good. And what we are going to do is that Hannah Arendt and Robert Schuman, they are going to work together. Okay, so Peter Povchev, he's in Hannah Arendt. I will move him to Robert Schuman. Okay. So everyone should be in one room. If you have any problems, just write to me, and we'll move you to another room, or we'll see what the problem is or the issue. So yeah, Alejandro, I think you can move.
No, I cannot. Actually, I was going to ask you.
Okay, I'll call you now, and then we can see how to do that. Yeah. But all participants, I'll send you the links to work in Google Drive, and so you can start doing that. Hello, is there anyone that has not been allocated to a room? Because I can see Viser Vanchev, Konstanz Gottfried, Metodi Ivanov, and Radostina. If you want to be in one of the breakout rooms, please let me know. Hi, Alejandro.
Hi, that was fun. That was critical.
Okay, people are slowly coming back. So yeah, okay. They have 20 more seconds to,
Yeah, it's, I guess it's fine. I thought 10 minutes to 1 p.m. And then we can use this just 10 minutes extra, in total 15 minutes overtime to just to, is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, you're the facilitator, so.
Oh, yes, I always like to finish punctually, but it's just, it was a lot of work for less than 50 minutes. Very good. Hello, everyone. How do you feel? So I want to tell you a trick here. I lied to you at the beginning because I told you the objective, which was it somehow, was to have some text to post in the platform on the Conference on the Future of Europe. The truth is that I lied to you, kind of. Because when I saw it was going to be 1 hour, I thought there is no way, or it's very difficult to come up with policy recommendations when you are discussing with people in 1 hour time. Even in 2 hours would have been probably difficult. So I try in my introduction to be very clear in the structure, in the time constraints. And I told you in the very beginning, this exercise is going to be about team and time management very consciously. And I told you it was going to be about to work under pressure. Someone that we all understand and we think we know, but when it comes to the time, we have to actually enable our skills. Sometimes a bit difficult. Why did I do this? And then I have to say also, I have the feeling that with all my friends, with the pandemic, one of the things that we are lacking the most, and we are, is this excitement, this kind of, pressure. So I hoped I could give you back a little bit of that frenetic life that we had before the pandemic. But now, seriously, why did I lie to you? What was my point? We are all here pro-Europeans, and I hope that all of you will be taking part in as many events as possible in the process of the Conference on the Future of Europe. The complex processes and even the challenges within social challenges, within the discussions that we had with these people, with your teams now, you will have if you participate in other events and in the process of the conference. And you will have to fight not only with time constraint, with time and team management constraint, not only with people who are pro-European, and you need to discuss while you think actually the same, what's the best way to say, and I want to correct something, but in the end, I also want to see an energy union. You will be discussing with people that actually maybe at some point even oppose those ideas. So I thought I'm going to do this workshop and I'm not going to say anything. I would have been very, very surprised if you guys would have really managed to be very efficient and, without problem coming with a perfect solution. I wanted to first write a small policy recommendation and also put you as an opening workshop in the situation that I fear, or not fear, it's actually a positive thing that you are start to prepare yourself for this. You will leave a lot if you participate in the Conference on the Future of Europe, because there's a lot of different approaches to many things, and because it will not be in a team with 5 people. It will be in a conference room, maybe with 40 people, maybe probably online, maybe with people who even the level of English is no close to the level of English that we have today, that we have a lingua franca we can discuss on. So all these small things that we had today will be amplified. So my trying to teach you something in this workshop was just to value these complex things that this even frustration that you might have felt in the process of this workshop, and just put an accent on that for you to reflect on it in case you go into further debates within the Conference on the Future of Europe. Nonetheless, you actually managed to come up, both of your groups, with different proposals. So what I'm going to do in this less than 5 minutes that we have is to ask one of you from each team to very briefly just share with the other team what you did in the end, just the results, maybe very briefly, 3 minutes each. And for that, just for everyone to be maybe easier, Alejandra, if you could actually share your screen with the Google Doc of the team which is presenting.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. So who's presenting first? Altiero Spinelli or?
Hold on. I think we could do Altiero Spinelli first because they managed to be very short in words. So I think.
So Altiero Spinelli.
Yeah, just
yeah,
also
okay.
the representative or the person explaining the topic. Just also be short in words, speaking as you are in. So we have a half all the time. And yeah, just choose one of you, maybe Wolfgang or ich kann das. Sorry, I cannot pronounce your name, Selina. One of you guys, I don't remember who else was in the group, or Velko or Wolfgang, some of you, just go ahead, explain us.
Shall I go? Hello?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so just it's not a kind of apology, but I first should say that initially there was another proposal for a topic, and afterwards the one who made the proposal left, so we just thought that it's more appropriate to unite around another proposal, and here what we started. The problem is the way decisions are made in the field of European foreign security and defense policy, because the process is heavy, bureaucratic, and time-consuming. And Europe is always following the events and not creating them. So the challenge is to make this process the process simple and faster, so that Europe reacts into an adequate way to the global challenges. And we think that the solution is to abolish the unanimity principle and to introduce the qualified majority voting system in the European Council in the field of foreign security and defense policy. Is this enough?
Yeah, very good. Before we pass to the next topic, what I was telling them in the group is that in the problem assessment, it's always good, even if you're assessing the problem, to even support that problem with some arguments. I propose, for example, that they go to Eurobarometer and show how a big majority of Europeans are in favor of turning to qualified majority instead of unanimity, and how this is also a problem because, for example, it's clear that the will of the European people does not go hand to hand with the actual regulations today, with the legal basis today. So this kind of argument, just so you can visualize a bit more, allows you in a policy briefing a lot to bring the reader or the person you want to convince in a very logical manner to the policy recommendation, to the solution that you have in the end. And one last point, which I also leave open to Alejandra and the UEF team, sorry. When they post this in the platform, you can just change the problem assessment and the policy recommendations and make from it a very short text, you know? So instead of just 2 policy recommendations, then you write, for these reasons, our policy recommendation is, and then you write the policy recommendation. That's another option. I just thought before we go that further, it was important to divide those 2 steps. So next team, who wants to present? I don't know if there is any questions before the person presenting from the other team starts. I think Eva wants to speak, but you don't have.
Eva, I think Eva can present the issue on energy.
Eva, just a reminder, your microphone is off. So if you turn on, then we can. There you go.
Okay, fine. The topic chosen by the group was energy sovereignty. We first made a kind of problem assessment, which I do not refer to now at length, but come to the policy conclusions. Please, can you shift it a bit up so that I can see it? the recommendations coming out of the analysis of the problems is policy recommendations in a few points. The Union should support energy communities to get access to the grid, which is a problem in a lot of member states. And support means financial and legislative support. Support for the phase out or replacement of previous generation reactors in nuclear energy. Then organization of citizens' participation in energy policy formulation and implementation should be very important, because we have a lot of resistance and a lack of knowledge in population what it means energy security. And then a consistent foreign energy policy, much better coordinated, because we know those different aspects of North Stream, South Streams, and all those gas pipelines and energy production. So we said that it would be better to focus on diversification away from fossil fuel energy dependency. And then encouraging integration of Central and Eastern European states in the process of a common European energy policy, because as it was said in the group, there is some lacking behind of those member states and lacking of cooperation between them when it comes to grids and to cooperation in that sense. And then this should result in effective national and regional measure implementations and dialogue, of course. And the last point, which is not written out finally, is knowledge sharing on the level of energy production and transition for the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. I wanted to say that I just hope you didn't struggle much, but this is a very fine, very short policy, both of them. Just this is very concrete one, and you actually managed to develop a lot of points. I do appreciate a lot, if I can give a bit of feedback, that some of the analysis that you did, some of the bullet points in the term this is problematic, are actually answered in the different proposals that you did. This is very important to create this sense of logic that will make a decision maker say, oh yeah, that makes sense, that's good, I'm gonna use that for my speech in the plenary next week or wherever. The analysis, though, it doesn't necessarily need to be bullet points. You can, for the future, always like do a text, like an analysis, because normally you'd write a policy briefing where it's like well-founded, and then you come up with the policy recommendations. That said, in the time that we had, and very good work. I just think this is something very nice. And if you manage to, for future events, put people to work to come up with these recommendations in your positions and in your favors within the broader debates of the Conference on the Future of Europe, we will be making a great favor to the cause of federalism, because we will be being accurate, strong in our positions, and also being able not to make the others feel that they are excluded from the decision process. Because in the end, the important point of this conference is that we bring everyone, even the people who do not agree on the process of integrations, but we as federalists convince them that the federalist solution and the further integration solutions are also the way to make Europe work better. So that was a bit of my my workshop. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm more than welcome to receive last comments, critiques. Also, they will make me better for next events. I know probably we all grow in practice. And also, if you just want to comment anything, maybe 2 minutes to do that, please feel free. Peter, go ahead. I'm not moderating. I just don't want Alejandra to be angry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Short.
I only suggest that I don't know if Ms. Lichtenberger, who said she's not the drafter, but whoever is, or if she's prepared to include the phrase that we all agreed to on the top of the text, which is that the European Green Deal political framework and various sectoral strategies should take the center stage of European institutional debate and action including at the citizens level. This will be an opening. You can take it, you know, for your document, not necessarily the one on energy sovereignty, but the European Green Deal should take the center stage. You know, this is in the next 10 years in particular. So something to the effect, to my mind, should be included in the written formulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Actually, I think Alejandra and the team from the Secretary General, they are like the ones who definitely got that, and they will definitely, they are going to be drafting that and be finalizing for the platform. However, I can point it out, now it's a bit late because we finished, but if you are so keen and interested on this kind of, you find that as problematic, in the website, in the platform on the Conference on the Future of Europe, you can choose by topics. And I would recommend you really, you can actually join some groups where you can just expose your ideas and debate. So I would recommend you to just check the platform and just look for Green Deal and circular economy. I think it's cool. And just maybe share those many other thoughts that you have there. That would be of a lot of value, I think. I don't know if anyone else wants to just say something.
Yes, just wanted to state a very big thank you to the organizers from yesterday, from today, Dr. Lichtenberger, as well as Mr. Cordero. It was a very wonderful event, very enlightening in many aspects, as well as to the many wonderful speakers you invited. And in the future, I do hope that we will see an even larger set of topics and discussion rooms being organized. And the interactive part of this whole discussion and policy paper practice that we just had was also very nice. And in the future, it would be even better, perhaps, if the diverse range of people with their diverse specializations are more concretely focused within these focus groups and workshops. I believe it would provide even better end results.
Thank you very much, Mario, because actually, yes, we just shared our feedback form. So feel free to comment, you know, and to propose all these things so that we can improve for the next events. And thank you very much. I don't know if Eva wants to say some final words before we conclude this event on behalf of the UEFEB Executive Board. Yeah.
So thank you very much for participating and spending Saturday morning for heavy work and heavy listening. It was really, really great, and we had really great contributions to the topics that we were touching upon. And I think and I hope that this debate, be it in Bulgaria, be it transborder, should continue. I think what our major goal is to motivate people just to participate, just to have a say on what the future of Europe can be. And the more contributions you will provide for in the oncoming month, the more our voice will be heard. And this is what I'm really hoping of. Don't stop now. Just go on working. Create your groups with your friends and maybe discuss further things that we have started today, or find new topics that you will point on and you will focus on for the future. So I really ask you to stay tuned to go into this process, and it is. And remember one thing, if you go to statistics, if you go to European policy, one voice that makes his or herself heard is counting for thousands, because it's not everybody who's able and willing to use those tools. What you say will have a weight if you really stay tuned and stay on and stay formulating your ideas for a joint Europe. So with that wish, I want to finish and thank you all very much for your participation and your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.